Good afternoon, everyone. We are honored to welcome Knesset member Nir Barkat, former mayor of Jerusalem. The topic of this conference is to clarify not only what Israel's strategy is, but rather what the recommended strategy would be. Over the last few months, Mr. Barkat, you've formulated a vision that attempts to address Israel's strategy. It's a multidimensional strategy that talks about defense and economy and science and other things. So I want to talk about your perspectives as the main issues on the agenda, looking at the bigger issues and talking about existential issues like the Palestinian issue and Israeli society. Let's start with the topic that has been addressed in most of the issues mentioned in the speeches today, which is the Iranian issue. What is your perception of the Iranian issue? Do you think that when looking back on the type of strategies that were implemented, what could have been changed, what could have been done differently? Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. I think that we are not estimating the Iranian threat correctly. Iran is attempting to attack us from 6 different directions, from Lebanon, Gaza, the long-range missiles, Syria, Judea and Samaria, of course, and a new threat that is facing many parts of Israeli society. Trying to use all of these together, and the most dangerous threat, in my opinion, that I think we have to focus on is missiles fired against central Israel by Hezbollah, by Nasrallah. Nasrallah is planning a missile attack, thousands of missiles. We're talking about hundreds of targets, and think about how many casualties we're talking about. I'm talking about a conventional attack on a scale that Israel has never encountered before on the home front. And I think that the next attack from Lebanon will not be the third Lebanon war. It will be the first Iranian war. And there is, of course, the unconventional Iranian threat, but I believe that the Iranian conventional threat requires us to rethink how we can avoid causing damage only in Lebanon when we're attacked, but how we cause damage in Tehran, and how do we tell the Iranians in advance that you are the source of all evil in the region. We understand that, we realize what they want to do, and it is completely unacceptable and intolerable. And therefore, the conception that we have to reach is to mark Iran as the target for our next war, because Iran is the source. That means developing conventional capabilities, not only unconventional capabilities. Preventing them from acquiring non-conventional weapons is not enough. We need a long arm from Israel's army, and also to work with the United States in the region. We need an agreement. We need a regional accord. We need the Americans on board, even though they're busy with other things. And we have to work as a big group when facing the Iranian threat. I don't think that what we've done so far has been enough, and the threat is getting closer and closer. It's a perception. We have to change our perception, change our mindset, and prepare the public for what could happen here, for the possible scenario that we may encounter. And if there's anything that keeps me awake at night, it's the fact that we're not prepared for the strike that we may receive, and what we have to do to prevent that from happening. We have to make the Iranians realize that we'll attack them directly. crossing the ocean, to talk about an issue that's also been discussed, which is the very complex issue of Israel's relations with the United States. And now I'm talking about the regime, the administration, and also the changing relations between the communities, the community in Israel and the Jewish community in the United States. So I'd like to hear what you think about that and the changes you would like to apply. I was recently part of several trips to the United States to meet the community there. There's one thing that interests the people in the United States, and that is China. They realize that the West battle is with the Chinese. But Democrats and Republicans alike, they all see China as the adversary. They're less interested in the Middle East. The United States will tell the entire world to choose sides. There's no gray area there from their perspective. You're either with them or against them. And this is an excellent opportunity because there's less of a focus on the Middle East. They understand, after their experience with Afghanistan, they understand that they don't understand the situation. They have the ability to develop relations with Israel on security issues. But in general as well, there's an interesting agreement that I think could develop. The Democrats believe in human rights, and they realize that you can't compare the human rights situation in Israel and in the PA in other areas. But we have to cooperate on those issues, which are different than the type of cooperation we have with the Republicans. I think there's an excellent opportunity here to collaborate with the Americans. I presented my plan that I've been working on over the last few years based on my experience as mayor of Jerusalem regarding the regime or the public, the Jewish community. No, I'm talking more about the senators, our partners in the U.S. Congress, and there's a lot. They listen to us, and if you don't mind, I would like to talk a little bit about that. My plan for Judea and Samaria and with the Palestinians is, as I tell the Americans, put the two-state solution aside for a moment and instead of talking about a top-down process, I'd like to present a bottom-up process that formulates from which we can derive a new strategy. So I present my first plan, which is based on economic development. The average salary in Israel is $43,000. Israeli Arabs, $33,000 per year. The Palestinians that cross the border every morning, 16,000. Those that work in the settlements, 11,000. In areas A and B, 7,000. In Gaza, $3,000 per year. So the more the Arabs cooperate with the state of Israel, the more more prosperous they are. If there are 150,000 Palestinians that work with Israel, my goal is to reach 1 million Palestinians in the next few years. We can work in Gaza or in areas A or B, but they can come into Israel. And we've developed a program for expanding employment opportunities to have people staying in Israel as opposed to crossing the border every day. I'm talking about developing a strategic process for Palestinian prosperity in Israel. We have to develop roads that optimize for optimize routes for both the Jews and the Palestinians. The Palestinians use both. We only use ours. This is reverse apartheid to some extent, but I think that we need this investment. We need this double investment because it's a matter of security and prosperity for the Palestinians. Now, I'd like to ask, because we're talking about something enormous. We're talking about the future of the Jewish nation and the Palestinian people. If I take your program, which talks a lot about economy and economic peace, and if I put that on the spectrum between one state, and I think we're getting closer, we're going in that direction, and separation, we're talking more about a one-state solution. No, I think that these are conceptions that don't hold water, and I told the Americans as well that you thought there would be a moderate state in Afghanistan, and you ended up with Taliban. And there are the naive people who thought that when we left Gaza, there would be Singapore, but we ended up with a Hamas-controlled area, and it's not going to happen. They're not going to become a state. What will be their status? I just want to say one thing, and then I'll get back to your question. My plan talks about job opportunities, tourism, based on biblical stories. We're talking about the Holy Land, and when I talk to the Americans about Judea and Samaria, they understand that it's not just any piece of land. They're also interested in developing it for tourism from all over for tourists from all over the world. It's the Holy Land for all religions. It's a win-win plan. We need complete military control, civilian separation, and economic cooperation. So it's virtual, not dividing the actual territories. Yes, it's virtual. Instead of setting boundaries, which are impossible to secure, we're talking about a network that connects the Palestinians to one another and the Israelis from one to another, two separate political bodies. The Americans ask me what the Palestinian Authority think about this process, because the process that I'm talking about, the leaders in Judea, the Jewish leaders in Judea and Samaria agree, and there's consensus among leaders in Central Israel as well with this bottom-up program. And then the Americans ask me what the PA thinks about this plan, and they're interested because they haven't really heard about it. And the answer is that the PA, the leaders object, the civilians I agree with all of the components, but the heads of the authorities, the heads of the tribes, they are committed to their people, and they are interested in cooperating. Shlomo Ne'eman from Gush Etzion, and Jabri from Hebron, leader of one of the leading tribes there, they met together with me, and they have a lot of ideas. They're interested in a joint strategy because they want prosperity for their people. Today they're working together today as we speak. Many people don't even know about it. There's a lot of successful cooperation on the tactical level. And when I talk to the Americans, I present an approach, a perspective, not exactly like the Emirates. The Emirates model, I don't want to annex anything. My plan says nothing about annexing. We're talking about civilian separation. We don't have to annex any territory. I went to Brookings, the research centers in the United States, the Washington Institute, Hudson. I present my models. And despite the fact that they say that over the last 15 years, no one even presented an option for a plan, nothing to even discuss. This is something to discuss, to talk about going bottom up instead of top down. Let's talk about prosperity. Let's talk about helping more Palestinians succeed and about their rights compared to other places. I want them to have as many rights as possible, because if things are good for them, on average, my experience as mayor of Jerusalem shows that things are better for us as well. And that is something that the Americans can understand and can accept. So you're talking about not separating the two nations, the two societies. It's almost a Balkanian existence. You're saying that you disagree with the idea of a one-state solution. No, that's not true. It's not a one-state solution. We won't manage us. We won't manage them. They won't manage us. Not a single Jew will have to leave their homes. Jews can live wherever they want in the world, especially in Judea and Samaria and Jerusalem, of course. When there's peace, no one has to move from one place to another. So in this complex situation has been created in the field, we have to think virtually. We need virtual connections so that people can live as if there's one single autonomous region. I want them to be able to manage their own lives. Economics, I believe in cooperation because I think it'll be better for them and ultimately better for us. And from the security perspective, we will never allow Hamas or Hezbollah to control Judea and Samaria. When we try to explain to the Americans we try to use analogies of businesses. You can't have one side saying we want to get rid of you or throw you in the sea, and now let's try to find a compromise. It doesn't work that way. After their experiences in Afghanistan, the Americans realized that they don't understand the mentality. This is an excellent opportunity to work with the Americans. They will appreciate our assistance much more than we than we realize when it comes to China. And if we work correctly, and if we show them that we have shared values, that we want prosperity with our neighbors, but on the other hand, we will be rigid and harsh when necessary to contend with our enemies, I think that this is a model that can create significant hope looking forward. I didn't expect us to agree in this discussion, but I think the advantage is that we're presenting a topic that I think that the Israeli society doesn't discuss often enough. I think you're presenting a thesis that has to be addressed in public discourse. We could spend much more time talking about it, but our time is up. Thank you very much. Thank you, Michael.